I know, actually, hello. I'm mic'd up. Hello, I hope you enjoyed lunch. I made all of the choices, so if you hate them, don't let me know. What we're going to do next is talk about fact-checking, but not talking about fact-checking necessarily in the sense of what are tech solutions to fact-checking. As alluded to previously, we often see academics, platforms, well-meaning people thinking about building something for fact-checking, but not really understanding how the hell it works, or actually what the sensitivities are in certain countries and what the differences are. So in order to tackle that a little bit, the next session has brought together some of the best fact-checking organizations around the world, and we are going to do our best to tell you what that looks like day to day and what that actually looks like in terms of the user needs that fact-checkers have, in terms of the difficulties that they face, and in terms of the opportunities that we see. I should mention, by the way, and I forgot to, I'm really sorry, we don't want any pictures taken of this panel. So if you have taken a picture, please delete it immediately. Thank you. Cool. So we're going to start off with Will Moy, who is the CEO of Full Fact, a UK fact-checking organization. We're each going to do, well, I'm not. These guys are going to do 5 to 7 minutes, and then we're going to do questions right at the very end. So please save up all your questions for them. So Will, Full Fact.
Thank you. I'd like to thank my mother, etc. Full Fact is a charity that fights bad information, and one of the ways we do that is fact-checking. What I want to quickly sketch in the next 5 minutes is the range of work we do and the context we do it in, which is very different from some of my colleagues on the panel here who are all some of the most excellent fact-checkers in the world. Full Fact in the UK is one of the luckiest environments to do fact-checking in, which, if you've read anything about British news lately, might come as a surprise. It is true that our politics are a disaster. It is true that we have large numbers of senior politicians with very little obvious commitment to accuracy in what they say. It is true that we have false information about health threatening people's lives in this country. Those things are all true. But we do have quite a few advantages as well. We are, for one thing, fairly safe doing the work that we do. We don't have to worry about our physical safety very much. We were not the first fact-checkers. All of us benefited from the example of fact-checking organizations in the US like factcheck.org and PolitiFact, who trailblazed and who we've been able to learn from the tactics they employed. In the UK, we have very good access to official data, and quite a lot of it is quite good. We have strong civic institutions that create accountability that we can talk to, whether it's about making sure politicians use facts accurately or correct the record when they make mistakes, or whether it's about creating information that reaches the public. And we're relatively well funded, and we have the ability to invest in technology and do work like helping to organize this conference. So this is the very fortunate end of tackling bad information from a civil society perspective. Let me give you a quick overview of the range of work we do. In the first place, we are fact-checkers. We are every day looking at important claims in public life and that affect people's lives and trying to work out whether they're true or not and give people information to help them make vital decisions, whether that's about who to vote for or whether or not to vaccinate your child. This is, for all its limits, for all the difficulty of reaching all of the people you would want to reach, this is an important service. Our research team has been reviewing the evidence on the impact of fact-checking. You can find their work at fullfact.org/research. That's a joint project with Africa Check and Checkiado here, which talks about some of the impacts of fact-checking on its audience, and more will be coming out soon. But to make it more concrete, a woman rang us up, a young mum, a month or two ago, and she said, "I've been looking on the internet, I've been trying to decide whether or not to vaccinate my children, and I couldn't decide. And then I found your site and I found your work, and that was what made me decide not to trust all of those warnings and those false warnings and to vaccinate my children." Some of the work we do does actually save lives. But much more of the work we do goes into a fight about the information people see in their day-to-day lives. So when we see people getting things wrong, we ask them to correct the record, whether that's the Prime Minister or a leading business or a top charity or a major newspaper or broadcaster. We ask them to correct the mistakes they make, not because publishing a correction will undo all the harm done the first time they said the thing, but because it might have a chance of stopping them spreading the claim so far. In a similar way, in the partnership we now have with Facebook, along with other fact-checkers around the world, if we see something that's wrong, we flag it to Facebook, and they are in a position to take action to reduce the spread of those claims. That's their responsibility, not ours, but we have a way of feeding it in to their work now. So we do fact-checking. We give people information directly. We do corrections. We try to impact the information supply. And then we look at the evidence from thousands of fact-checks and work out, where are things going wrong? Where does this bad information come from? What enables it to do more harm? Sometimes it's about the design of internet platforms. Sometimes it's about the quality of public information and how well it's communicated. Sometimes it's about particular people in positions of power who routinely mislead and distort. It's our job to discover those patterns, to diagnose them, and to come up with ways of solving them. We've got major newspapers in the UK to introduce corrections columns. We've got the Office for National Statistics to improve the way it publishes data. And we are constantly working with the internet companies to challenge them on their ability to do more in this area. But all of this needs to scale. The rise of the internet, the proliferation of people who can reach large audiences is a massive challenge for us, and that's why we're so interested in the tech environment. We were very lucky to be about, I think, the first, along with Checkiado, to be able to invest in artificial intelligence and a technology team. And we've been building tools basically to speed up every part of the fact-checking process. If you're going to fact-check something, you want to know that it's the most important thing you can possibly fact-check, which means actually monitoring everything everyone's saying to work out what's the biggest stuff, what's the stuff that's making most difference, what's the stuff that's just emerged so that we can find it quickly and correct it before it spreads widely. That claim detection task is vital to the effectiveness of our fact-checking. But when we've done the fact-checking, we want to make sure that fact-checking reaches everywhere it needs to reach. If somebody repeats the claim that we fact-checked last week and we don't see it, we can't do anything about it. This is what we call claim matching. We built tools that will instantly read the subtitles off a television when a politician is speaking, work out if they've repeated a claim we've seen before, and flag it so we can act then and there. And then the next step is, in some cases, to actually automate the checking process itself. We will never get rid of human fact-checkers. What we can do is stop them having to do repetitive, boring, predictable types of fact-checking and free them up to do the higher value work. And so what we call Robo Checking is about automatically identifying claims that a computer can check mechanically and delivering those checks in real time for our fact-checking team to scale up their work. All of those things are crucial to our ability to move up to internet scale. And to give you one quick example of what that looks like, as Dan Brickley showed you in the claim review session earlier, the government is currently claiming, falsely, that it would cost £1 billion a month for the UK to extend our negotiations with the European Union. This is not true. It used to be that we would have to read all the newspapers in the morning, we would have to monitor what's being said in Parliament, we would have to watch all the big broadcast interviews and spot that for ourselves and then act on it. What happens now is I was sitting watching the Prime Minister make that statement, and he said it again, and I picked up my phone, I went to text my colleague whose job it is to get the record corrected, and then I realized I don't have to do this. And lo and behold, the next morning, an email popped up in our inboxes saying, Prime Minister said this yesterday, you need to do something about that, and by the way, here's all the other newspapers it appeared in. This is how technology is beginning to transform our world. The commitment we, Africa Check and Checkiado, have made jointly is to make this work not just in English, not just in Spanish, but to think global about how this can be useful to everybody, to open up the data that will make it useful and to open up the technology that will make it useful. So I'm sure you'll hear more about that during the rest of the session. Thank you.
We're going to rattle